The way this movie made me jump out of my chair 1 minute and then tear up the next needs to be studied. Let's talk a little bit about Damian McCarthy's Hokum.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
I want to be a fighter, like you.
Oh, let it burn! Let it burn!
Did you miss me?
You have to shoot them in the head. They always come back.
The boat can leave now. Tell the crew.
But sometimes that is better.
Good luck.
Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake. Today we're going to get into a spoiler-free review of Hokum, but before we do so, please make sure to like this video and subscribe for more horror movie reviews just like this one. Also, if you want to see uncut and uncensored versions of the reaction videos that go up on this page, please make sure to check out the Patreon by clicking on the link in the description below. Thank you to everybody who supports this page. Now let's talk a little Hokum. When novelist Ohm Bauman retreats to a remote inn to scatter his parents' ashes, he's consumed by tales of a witch that haunts the honeymoon suite. Soon, disturbing visions and a shocking disappearance force him to confront dark corners of his past. The film stars the ever-versatile yet always wonderfully dry Adam Scott and is the third feature from Caveat and Oddity director Damian McCarthy. I was so pleasantly surprised walking into a packed movie theater for this one earlier today, you would have thought it was the next Marvel movie. This movie's imminent success is very well deserved, as it's arguably Damian McCarthy's best feature yet. Hokum feels like you've just stumbled into a pub and the old Irishman at the end of the bar is telling you a ghost story. I mean that in the best way I possibly can. This flick is layered with a ton of personality, even though it is strikingly similar to a certain Stephen King short story. More on that later. With constant scares and all kinds of different horrors floating about this haunted honeymoon suite, this movie is vastly different from what I was expecting. Damian McCarthy has made two excellent slow burn horror films with Caveat and Oddity, but Hokum sort of breaks the mold here with a quicker pace and more scattered scares. I'd hardly call this film a slow burn at all, in fact. It's very different than his last two features in the sense that we are constantly moving and pushing things forward at every single turn. There are a ton of twists, there are a ton of jump scares, and the action is non-stop. The ending of this one didn't necessarily petrify me the way his last two features did, but that doesn't mean it's any less effective throughout. Hokum is still absolutely terrifying. What surprised me the most about this one, though, is the emotional core at the center. Adam Scott wonderfully plays Ohm as a cynical yet sympathetic writer who deals with mommy and daddy issues throughout. McCarthy's script takes this character right to the line of being unlikable and never crosses it, thankfully. For instance, there's a sequence where the bellhop comes up to Ohm all excited, fanboying, saying, "I love your novels, dude. Can you please look at my manuscript?" Ohm takes a metal spoon, heats it up over a candle, and burns the guy so he leaves him alone. See, you still end up rooting for the guy though, as more and more of his backstory is revealed throughout. He is a very, very troubled dude, which doesn't excuse his behavior, but it makes it more understandable. All of the characters here are very vibrant in performance and writing. You could tell just from reading the plot description for this one that it was riffing on Stephen King's 1408 a bit. But there's even more elements from King's haunted hotel story, including exact plot beats here. I'm sure that some horror fans are gonna walk away from this one criticizing the flick for being too 1408, but personally I thought this was done in a respectful tip of the hat kind of way. This is clearly a feature born out of love and respect for the King short story and underrated movie. I also think Hokum's injection of McCarthy's super Irish personality gives this one a different vibe than the David Duchovny flick, even though I'm sure some critics will argue that these two are sort of the same movie. A great double feature, however, on that I hope we can agree. The fundamental brilliance of Hokum is that it's able to deliver an emotional plotline while also going down this dark and sinister mystery the entire time. I don't want to go too deep into spoilers, but the climax of this film is a perfect example of that. If you know, you know. The trailers made this look like a scary ass movie, and it certainly is, but it's also very warm and fuzzy at times. Maybe the most shocking thing about the entire flick. There's a really goofy side character that gets an emotional moment, and also a character throughout who is helping Adam Scott, but maybe from the other side. That ends up getting a really subtle catharsis as well. There's also a really interesting sequence that bookends this flick that kind of riffs off of a very popular Stephen King book criticism. This movie does borrow a lot from 1408, but it's also just riffing off of a lot of deep-cut Stephen King references. It's not just there to point the finger at one of the greatest horror novelists of all time, however, it's also a great way of showing you how Ohm's complicated relationship with his parents evolves over the course of the film. This is such a warm and fuzzy movie, fucking terrifying too, but warm and fuzzy at the same time. Hokum is so not the movie I was expecting expecting it to be, but Damian McCarthy absolutely delivered here while showing that he's tightening up as a creative. Hokum is a really special release this year because it's a complex web of grief, ghosts, childhood trauma, witches, and evil rabbit-themed children's show hosts that somehow all work together in stride. Call this a 1408 ripoff all you want, but that juggling act right there is crazy impressive, and also makes this something different than King's early foray into liminal space. So many plot points are the same thing as 1408, but I think Hokum arguably stands on its own 2 feet. The one thing I did correctly predict about Hokum is that it was gonna end up with a pretty high score from old Jake. I give Hokum a generous 9 out of 10, and here's where I'd rank it amongst the other horror flicks I've seen this year. I'm really excited to see what the reception is to this one, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Please subscribe to the page for more videos just like this, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.